What am I, a singles queen?
Welcome to Groovy Movies. My name's Lily Austin.
And I'm James Brailsford. Hello.
Hello. And this week on the podcast, we're finally going to be discussing a good news story in the film industry, the production company A24.
And we'll be taking a closer look at one of their latest releases, The Drama.
But first, we have a bit of an announcement. After 5 years of working on this podcast, over 5 years, we have actually decided that it's time to kind of wind down Groovy Movies.
Yeah, it's it feels a bit sad saying that, but
Very
yeah, it's
sad.
been 5 years of keeping this kind of podcast going. It's been a lot of fun, but yeah, it's just yeah. I don't know what to say really, Lily, but it's a lot of it takes a lot of work to kind of get this done, and just to think on top of our respective careers, we're just struggling a little bit to keep our heads above water.
Yeah, I think if anyone is a regular listener, you'll obviously have noticed that we've generally been once a week, but then we would for every 2 weeks for a while there, for a year or so, a couple of years back. And now, obviously, we've kind of stripped it back to once a month because, yeah, we're basically so busy that that's all we can kind of manage. And really,
we're trying
it's
to
just,
keep it going. We're trying.
Yeah, and I feel it was like the saddest thing to like make this decision because it is probably the thing I enjoy doing most outside of work. But yeah, it was just that, yeah, it's a huge amount of work and we have these other things kind of going on. So we thought maybe to like sort of end on a high and maybe come back from time to time if there's something we really want to talk about.
Yeah, I think the main run is closing down, but there may be occasional, but we don't want to promise anything that we can't deliver. But I don't feel I'm fully done with Groovy Movies just yet. But yes, so we thought we'd give you advance warning anyway, just because we wanted to make sure that we kind of led up to a final episode, that you had a bit of time to prepare, and maybe if you want to message us and let us know your favourite bits, or tell us not to go and offer us thousands of pounds to keep going. Either of those things, totally fine by us.
Yeah, please. Any, wealthy benefactor who'd like to now come out of the woodwork.
Yes.
It's time. This is the moment.
I've never had a benefactor before. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's true. We're basically our plan is to do 3 more episodes, a 2-parter looking at Christopher Nolan in depth, because after 5 years, it's high time I give James the floor to really sink his teeth into his special interest. I think it's only fair. And then we want to kind of finish post the Odyssey, though we're quite nervous about this because we are a little concerned that this could be Nolan's.
I'll be honest with you, Lily. Ever since Interstellar, which I just wasn't a massive fan of at the time, it's grown on me. I've always had the feeling with every new Christopher Nolan film, is this going to be the one that completely just he drops the ball? Because he's also, unlike most directors who've ever existed ever, he's had an unprecedented run of, apart from Tenet, let's say, which was the pandemic, so it kind of special experience. But
I like Tenet.
He's never had a complete critical and commercial failure, right?
And that's the thing. It's the fact that he is both critically and commercially beloved, despite those films getting bigger and bigger. So yeah, could this be the one that kind of sort of finally jumps the shark, or whatever that expression is? We'll find out. But the point is, either way, there's going to be a lot to say. So we thought it would be fitting to sort of finish with that, and then, I don't know, do a kind of special episode to wrap the kind of official run, as you say. So yes, it is sad. I say it's been something I think we've both been like thinking about for a while, but didn't want to say to each other.
Breaking up is so hard to do, Lily.
I know, especially because it's just so nice that we get to have a chat every month, but yes. Anyway, so that's the news that we wanted to share to give you a bit of notice. But on with the show, let's talk about latest film news. James, I really wanted to talk to you. We kind of slightly missed it because this was between episodes, and maybe that was slightly deliberate on my part. But Michael came out a few weeks ago, has been a huge box office hit and a huge critical failure.
Yes, yeah. Like I do quite enjoy these where the critics absolutely savage it, but it does good money. Oh God, I had one in my head.
What about that one, the Minecraft movie? That did incredibly
Yes,
well, right? And the critics were like, what on earth is this mess?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was going to say, I guess that wasn't based on. I mean, it was based on a big IP, wasn't it? I mean, they're both IPs essentially, Michael Jackson and Minecraft. Yeah, but absolutely, I'm very glad for the film to have done so well. I wasn't that interested in seeing it because as soon as I heard it was from the makers of or the producers of the Freddie Mercury Queen biopic, which was so washed and watered down. What could
Yeah.
have been a very exciting, edgy film that really got into a lot of interesting issues was just this most sanitized film, and also like made really poorly. There's actually a YouTube video that deconstructs a sequence between from that Queen biopic, and it just shows how badly made it is. So I just like for all those reasons, I was out. Although Antoine Fuqua, interesting, good director, so that was the one thing that was making me slightly interested in seeing Michael, but not enough.
So you haven't been to see it. You're not going to see it.
Don't think so. No, you yourself?
No. I don't have any interest in seeing a biopic that isn't accurate. I mean, I don't know how how accurate are they anyway, but I sort of think that like it's not even from what I understand, like we can't critique because neither of us have seen it, but from what I understand, it doesn't even paint the like highs of his life in a very interesting way. It is so watered down. It's bland all the way through. So like if it was a well-made and like interesting story, even if they did decide to like for whatever reason like skim over the difficult parts of his story and his life.
Well, they had to reshoot the entire third act. Have you read about that?
We discussed it actually on the podcast.
Did we? Oh, sorry. God damn, that's my short-term memory. Christ, sorry.
I read about I heard about it on my own podcast. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it sounds like it was always going to be a bit of a mess because they had to change the ending to not acknowledge this trial that he went to because the victim, part of their settlement was an agreement that the victim would never be depicted.
Yes.
And the estate somehow forgot about that or missed that. So anyway, I'm not going to go see it, but my husband grew up listening to Michael Jackson, is a big fan, and so is interested in seeing it. So we have decided that on Wednesday, he will go see Michael and I will go see The Devil Wears Prada 2 because he has no interest in seeing that.
I was about to ask, I did want to know if you were going to go see Devil Wears Prada 2 because in my head I had you down as a fan of the original, but that could just be me kind of filling the gap. Right.
Well, yeah, I don't know if we have ever I wouldn't say I'm like a huge fan. It doesn't fall into the category of, say, Clueless or Romy and Michelle's High School Reunion in terms of...
Bridget Jones' Diary?
Well, I was thinking specifically about iconic fashion films, but sure.
Oh, sorry.
But if we're talking about movies that ladies and gays like, then yes, that as well. It doesn't, to me, it was never in that league. So I was I was quite surprised when the sort of marketing machine amped up around this film, how big it was going, because in my mind, it's like, it's not major in that way, but actually it's obviously grown this following over the years. And the thing that I really loved to see was that The Devil Wears Prada beat Michael in terms of its opening weekend box office. So Michael made 217 million. The Devil Wears Prada 2 made 233 million. That made me very, very happy because, okay, I think probably the lesson for the studios will be the wrong one, which is that like, well, maybe not the wrong one, but that sequels and established IP are like always going to be good money spinners. Not necessarily, but I do think that what it really shows is that films that appeal to the girls and the gays are the big box office winners, just as much as the Marvel movie type action or, and just as much as like a film about the biggest pop star of the 20th century, So I thought that was very encouraging. I just hope that they'll take that seriously, I feel like we're going to get it's already happening because I think there is going to be a Romy and Michelle sequel. There's going to be a Practical Magic sequel later this year. We're already in this major millennial nostalgia girly movie era. And I think I've seen the Practical Magic 2 trailer. And I have to say, it looks quite poor. I'm a bit worried about it.
I mean, I feel like we're going to have to do a practical magic special, Lily. I do feel like we should get screw movies get the mothballs off it,
Yeah, okay. I feel like maybe even this announcement about us leaving is already too soon because already there are various things we're obviously going to want to talk about June 3 at Christmas. But yes.
Oh God. Anyway, but so from the box office, so it's Michael's legged out, as they say. So it gives me the impression, perhaps. That basically the amount of people who were interested in seeing Devil Wears Prada saw it on the opening weekend, and that was it done. It didn't really spill out onto people saying to people who didn't like, you've got to go see Devil Wears Prada, whereas that happened a bit more with Michael.
It happened a bit more with Michael, that's true. But Devil Wears Prada has not done bad. I mean, as of this weekend, it's made 326.5 million. And by the way, that was against a budget of 35 million, whereas you compare it with Michael, the box office, 487.8 million. So, okay, significantly more. But the budget was 155 million after all those reshoots.
Right.
So
I didn't realize Devil Wears Prada was such a small budget. That was smart. Everybody's got the message in Hollywood now. You can't be making $100 million movies, especially when they're essentially like people talking in different rooms.
Well, apart from the production company behind Michael. But yeah, you're correct. Yeah, that is the key, right? That is what is going to save Hollywood. And this is really positive because...
However, just need to interject. So it is encouraging that they made it for cheap. However, I don't know if you've seen on my particular feed of the things I'm interested in, I'm getting a lot of, why do older movies look better than new movies? And they're comparing and contrasting The Devil Wears Prada and the latest version. And
yeah, I was fed that too.
It does look cheap. So, like, the thing is, yeah, you can make them for 33 million, but that's what they look like.
And you know what? That's exactly what I thought when I saw the Practical Magic 2 trailer, because the original Practical Magic, part of the appeal of it is it's filmed in this very kind of hazy, beautiful way. The light is stunning. We watched it once, and you said it looked great. I remember. And,
yeah, I mean, it's a classic era of those kind of films where they shot on film and they spent time lighting them.
Exactly. Whereas this is they've tried to recreate the exact same sets, but they don't have the same magic because, yeah, it's done in this sheeny way. It is sort of giving like new build versus Georgian townhouse.
What it is. If you're trying to get as many shots done as possible, as quickly as possible, right? The simplest thing is just to light everything with a flat light, a big soft light source. So everything that gets bathed in a very soft, very flattering light, but it means that there's no shape to it. There's no kind of like interest going on, where it takes time and effort and a lot bigger crew to set lights, to give everyone a nice little interesting backlight, to have these kind of lights going on. And so that has to go out the door. And that's what you're seeing really with Devil Wears Prada, above and beyond it being shot film and digital, which also doesn't help it being digital when the old one was on film for the difference. It's just that lack of time spent on the lighting also. So those two things are happening right now.
But it's exactly the same with Practical Magic too. Like, watch the trailer. It's like that was exactly my thought when I was watching it, that it was like a cheaper version.
Right. And so okay. So I've got it up here on YouTube now. Let's have a bit of live reacts then. Okay. So I've got the music down. I like the little candle though under the Alcon Entertainment. That was good. So far, it's starting off nicely. It looks okay. Just some exterior shots. Okay. It could be. They've not showed us the cast yet. Show us the money. That's what I care about.
The thing is, we need it alongside the original. Because it's really, if you know the original as well as I do, that it comes across.
Oh yeah, no. Like, because here's the other thing about digital as well. It's not actually that badly lit, I will say, but the other thing about digital is it makes skin tones look less appealing. It makes faces look less appealing. And you are going to be looking at the faces of two very well-known icons who I remember seeing them in the 90s on a lot of things shot on film, and I don't know. Yeah, it just looks a bit. It also looks a bit flat now. Now we're getting into it. The opening few shots didn't mind, but it's got the guy from The Fall in it. Cool. Sorry, but yeah, it's flat. Everything's lit quite flat, and it's quite bright as well.
That's it. And it's I've the only seen practical and the flatness.
Yeah, it's very kind of Netflix basically. We can't have shadows. We can't have dark areas. People think they can't. People need to see the image.
Yes. Okay. We've gotten way off piece.
Sorry, I wasn't expecting to do a Practical Magic live reaction. Colour me intrigued, though, Lily. I'm definitely up for watching this for the pod.
Okay, fine. Okay, so we'll be coming back, guys. You can look forward to that. We're certainly intrigued. I don't think it's going to do as well as Devil Wears Prada, because Devil Wears Prada, the original, did actually do very well at the box office first time round. I think it sort of surpassed expectations that time too. But whereas Practical Magic was a flop that has like gained a cult following over many years.
Well. Let's see what the court of public opinion decides at the box office. But I think you're completely right.
Yeah, but what I will say is that whether we consider Michael or Devil Wears Prada 2 to have done better, on these different metrics. What is certainly true is that they've both done incredibly well, and this is like really great for the box office.
Yep.
They've projected that the global box office is going to surpass 35 billion this year, which is the highest grossing year since 2019, so post-pandemic. So that is like very positive. And this is, we're only in May. There are a lot of other big films that are going to be coming out this year. So I think this is going to be a good news year for the box office and for Hollywood, which is what it desperately needs.
Absolutely, he is hoping. I didn't realize it was that close to 2019. Obviously, the cynical part of me is like a lot. It's been helped by inflation. So, I think if we need to take a cold hard look, we probably need to look at tickets sold to see how we're doing. But I'm happy for it to be. I didn't realize it was on track to be as good a year as that, which is great.
Yeah. I mean, last year there were so many big flops. And it was a tough year for those sort of bigger budget movies, whereas so far there have been quite a few hits this year. I mean, we're going to talk about the drama later, and that has done incredibly well.
Yeah.
So I think yeah, as we were kind of talking about, there is definitely a move back to smaller, more sensible budgets for films that are meant to appeal to a broader audience.
Yeah, I think that was a genius with Devil Wears Prada. I didn't realize they made it for under 40 million. I suspect they got their cast on like back end deals, because you'd think that amount of money wouldn't even cover the cost of your cast, because it's a very big cast. So I suspect they got them on reasonable rates, but they said, look, if it makes money, you'll get a percentage. But
totally. And the other thing was there was just so many marketing partnerships, like everywhere you looked. There were like clothes being made, partnerships with Starbucks, partnerships with like, honestly, every product you could think of. And so I think that's the other thing, is that production companies are getting very proactive and very activated about finding other revenue streams around their product. I mean, the crazy thing was that and just like that, Sex and the City spin-off recently did an auction with I think it's called Julian's, the auction house in Hollywood. They auctioned off all the kind of props, clothing, paraphernalia from the show, and it made an absolute fortune. I mean, It was crazy because they sold off one of Big's Rolexes for $25,000. It was a fake Rolex. It wasn't real. Wow. And I'm very concerned that someone thought it was real. Because that's like not even a deal on a secondhand Rolex. It's crazy. Anyway, my point is simply like very smart, right? Like, where can we make money? Let's think about this to keep things going. So it's at least positive news for the industry. James, before we get on to talking about A24, I have to ask you about the film you recently went to see.
Yes. So yesterday morning I went to see the Billie Eilish Hit Me Hard and Slow. Is it? Is that right?
I don't know. I've not heard that.
Anyway, but it's in 3D, directed by James Cameron.
So you're It's gonna be loud.
Duh.
See the scrapes on my hands?
Is that from them?
That is from the fans.
So this came up on my radar a few months ago. In fact, I think it came up on my social media feed like last year, because there were pictures of James Cameron spotted in Manchester at the arena tour for Billie Eilish. So people cottoned on, and as soon as I heard James Cameron at a concert, I just thought James Cameron is absolutely directing her concert, and he's definitely doing it in 3D. Those were the two things I had. So I've been looking for this coming out, and it's finally come out. So because I was very interested, because the two Avatar films that I've endured, all I've ever thought is like, this is incredible technology. James Cameron is a master of it. Please, God, make something that isn't Avatar with this skill that you have, right? So I went to see it. I mean, I would consider myself. I don't listen to Billie Eilish's albums, but I know most of the tracks. You know, I listen to it occasionally,
You're a
like on
singles
my headphones.
queen.
Pardon?
You're a singles queen.
I'm a singles queen, Billie Eilish. Absolutely, yes. Yeah, that's a
Me
fair
too.
comment. Yeah, right. You know, and so I was just very interested to see it. I went to see it at the Trafford Centre, the Dolby Cinema, because I also had a suspicion that it would have been filmed in high frame rate, and that's one of the only cinemas we've got in Manchester that can show high frame rate. So I wanted to see it like in the
Incredible.
ultimate format. So and I was right, it was high frame rate. They just didn't advertise it because The Hobbit was made in high frame rate and everybody hated it. So it almost
Sorry,
looks
so
a bit
what
too
is high frame rate?
every film we've ever seen at the cinema is projected at 24 frames a second. That's just the speed of the film. So we see 24 frames every second. So
Okay.
we're just used to seeing that. High frame rate doubles that. So it was shot and projected at 48 frames a second. And what does that mean to what you see? Well, sometimes on YouTube, you can watch YouTube videos and it says 60 frames per second. It's more visual information. It means that movement looks smoother, looks more natural. It does look more realistic, but what it does do, it doesn't look filmic anymore. And that was the problem with the Hobbit films. If you saw them in high frame rate, they looked too realistic. They didn't look like fantasy films. And so this high frame rate thing, it actually works against when you're watching a piece of drama. It actually works against it because it suddenly feels a bit realistic. Right, it doesn't have that feeling of watching cinema.
So a little uncanny.
Uncanny, however, specifically I think for concerts, live sports, things that are meant to be happening in the real world, you want to simulate that. It looks fantastic. Like, I've never felt more immersed in a concert film. It's certainly the future, I think, of these big productions coming to cinemas. I would say make them in 3D because it just gives you, you're right in there. I thought as well, Billie Eilish, she does an interesting thing with the concert. It wasn't just the concert. You also saw all the stuff she does behind the scenes, like going under the stage and kind of having to get set up for the next thing. So it was a lot of fun. They had these handheld 3D cameras that were like completely innovative. So she was able to get into the crowd in 3D with a little camera. So yeah, I had a lot of fun. The music was great. So yeah, I think that's the future of like live performances in cinemas will be 3D.
And James Cameron brought a lot to it by him being the one to direct.
Yeah, I mean, he knows all the tricks. Like there's a lot of tricks to shooting 3D and to making it work and not making it like exhausting for the audience or not making it painful. So he knows all those tricks as well. So he just well executed, just top notch. And also he comes across quite charming in the documentary. James Cameron
he's
does
in
feature
the documentary.
Yeah, you hear him they're very good. They show the process, So Billie Eilish is very involved with ideas for the documentary, and he's kind of interviewing her. He comes across very charming, which is very nice because you just know that in the 80s and 90s when he was making his big hits, he was a fucking monster. He was like a psychopathic, horrible rager, and I just get the impression that when he worked on the Avatar films, Fox Studios they could see a fucking massive class action lawsuit coming their way. So I reckon he's had some HR like counselling how to people manage, like because he seems such a sweetie nowadays. He says he loses temper about once a month, which compared to every day, I think is good going for him.
He obviously softened with time.
Yes, yeah, I think so.
I have to say, it's very interesting that an A-list director would agree to direct a pop star's concert video. Obviously, it's more than just a concert video, and obviously Billie Eilish is huge, but I think that is very interesting and basically probably very indicative of the difficult position Hollywood is in, that these directors are sort of diversifying in this way. But if it's been, it's sort of, I've really not heard anything about it. So I hope that it cuts through in terms of recognition that he did a great job on it, because I think it could be interesting if we have more of these kinds of films coming out, and it would definitely bring people to the cinema, fans of musicians love it.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, my screening, it was 11:20 in the morning. It was like, there's about 3 people in there, so it wasn't very well attended, and also it's more a limited run. It's not like the Beyonce or the
Taylor Swift
movies, which had a sustained run. This seems to be just like a very limited performance. So.
I wonder what James Cameron's pay for that was then.
Well,
Here's
the thing. It turns out he's friends with Billie Eilish's mum. They're actually mates who go way back.
Okay.
And so
he probably did it more for the enjoyment,
like pretty
fun.
much. And he suggested it. He actually said, "Oh, it'd be cool to shoot one of Billy's things with these cameras." And she's like, "Oh, well, I'll let Billy know."
God, I feel like they've dropped the ball in like getting that out then, because I think if people had known about it, if people knew about it, they would be going. I mean, yeah. Anyway, I'm interested. I don't know if I'll go see it, but if for our Billie Eilish fans out there, strong recommend.
Strong recommend, yeah. I mean, even if you're not a huge fan, but you're a singles queen, like especially if you couldn't go see her or couldn't afford to go see her, for 20 quid to go see her in Dolby Surround 3D, it's astonishing. Yeah, really was.
And the thing is that concerts so crazy expensive these days that it's the only way for most of us to be able to afford to go see the musicians.
Yeah, and it's very immersive, really puts you right in the middle of it all.
Let's move along now to talking about A24, because I mean, I think if you're a big indie film fan, there are quite a few companies that you might be kind of familiar with when they come up on screen. You're like, oh, yeah, Fremantle or whatever. But I don't think there's any like A24 for all of us indie movie fans, or maybe not even always indie, but just for fans of like the non-blockbuster movie. You see A24 come up on screen and you're like, okay, great, I can relax. This is going to be a good movie. So I really wanted to like dive in a little bit more and talk about the production / distribution, I should say, company, and what has made it so successful.
Yeah, I mean, like, preparing for this podcast was the first time I actually looked at a list of all the films we produce, and of course, the first thing I noticed, oh, right, great, I've seen the majority of these rather than minority. So yeah, it is a rare thing, which it's like, they say Christopher Nolan's one of the few remaining directors who's like a marquee director. We all know his name. And it's like, I think A24 is one of the few outside the big Hollywood producers. It's pretty much the only indie that most people will have heard of. And I think it is great, their quality control, their taste for what the kind of movies that make these like modern, either experimental or what we would kind of class as art house films. They've nailed what the kind of the contemporary version of those are.
Absolutely, yeah. So, to give a little background, so A24 was founded in 2012 in New York by 3 film veterans, Daniel Katz, David Fenkel, and John Hodges. I found this quote that I quite enjoyed of Daniel Katz talking about the idea, because he said that he'd been like dreaming of starting a film company, but wasn't quite sure how he would make it work. And he said he was with a bunch of friends driving into Rome, and just at that moment had this kind of moment of clarity, and it was on the A24 motorway. So that is where the name came from.
I love it, because in your head it's so mysterious. What does it refer to? A24.
Yeah,
it's a road, but it refers to more than the road. I get it, but it is, yeah.
And you know what? They are a very mysterious film company, because on the one hand, as we've just said, they're now sort of synonymous with great movies and like very recognizable, but really like the people behind it, there aren't that many interviews. I couldn't really find that many like direct profiles of any of the men behind A24.
Right.
So it is a little mysterious, but what we do know is they launched this independent distribution and production company, starting off with distribution. And while it's true, like if you look through the list of films that they've made over the years, it is insane. Like Spring Breakers, The Bling Ring, Under the Skin, Ex Machina, The Lobster, American Honey, Moonlight, that of course won the Oscar in 2017, and in fact had 24 Academy Award nominations, which is kind of crazy. That, by the way, that was the first film that they fully produced and financed.
Yes, sorry. So they were distributors before. So obviously, with distributing a film, you take a much lower financial risk. You are buying. I can't remember the ins and outs of exactly what you do, but you either
they've made it, right? Someone else has
Yeah.
produced the film and it's been made, right? And then you buy the rights to distribute it in cinemas. Is that correct?
Yes, I think so. I don't know if you can also just buy the film outright. So you say, oh, you made that for here's 10 million to cover your budget costs. But yeah, I think it is the rights. Yeah, the ins and outs, I don't know. But exactly. So, but your financial risk is much less. But then, of course, your returns are much lower as well.
Right. Yeah. So it was sort of slowly. But what I did find interesting was that their very first film, as a distributor, the first film that they released was a total flop. It's called.
I know, which I want to see that now.
I know. Part of me is tempted. Sorry, guys, we didn't do the full research. I couldn't. I was like,
There's a lot of films. Come
it
on.
also sounded terrible and I like a bit horrifying. It's called A Glimpse Inside the Mind of Charles Swan III, which already is such a bad title because you look at it and think, oh, I haven't seen A Glimpse Inside the Mind of Charles Swan 1 and 2. So already we're off to a bad start. But the film was written, directed and produced by Roman Coppola, son of Francis Ford. So I think that kind of tells you something about what they were thinking because, you know, obviously great name in the director's chair, and it's got a good cast. Charlie Sheen plays Charles Swan. We've got Jason Schwartzman, Bill Murray, Patricia Arquette, Aubrey Plaza.
Oh, wow. And of course, Roman Coppola did a lot of the visual effects on Dracula. So he's got a bit of a visual effects background. So I would be curious. I would take a punt that there might be some quite heavy visuals or kind of effects in this film, perhaps, without having seen it.
Yeah, I think you might be right. He also he really made his name directing music videos. So he's done lots of the Strokes music videos, for example, and that was what I understood as a big criticism of the film, was that there was very little substance. It was very self-indulgent, and it was just like a lot of music video montages or vignettes. So it did not do well, and actually Roman Coppola hasn't made another feature film since, so
ouch.
Sorry, Roman. But it tells you something about the what they were trying to do with A24, because basically the idea was that they really loved 90s independent cinema, great admirers of that, and they really felt like there was this huge gap those sorts of films used to fill, because basically studios have become a bit too involved, a bit too controlling, and their idea was like, we're going to go back to this older approach of letting the writers and directors have full control. We can
the
offer,
good old days.
Yeah, I mean, we can offer you a smaller budget or less money in our distribution deal than you might get from other people. But the point is, like, we fully trust you and your vision. It's not about us as a studio coming in and telling you this is the market you've got to hit. We've got to appeal to this, and you know, all these other types of considerations. It's like, we're going to let auteur directors do their thing. So the first one, A Glimpse Inside the Mind of Charles Swan III, I just really wanted to say that again, did not do so well. But from then on, they've kind of had a really good run. Like I kind of mentioned these.
I mean, like so their second release that obviously kind of put them on the map, I would say, would be one of my favourite films, Spring Breakers.
Yes, and I think that this sort of like sums up the kind of the USP of what A24 does, because a lot of the time these are quite divisive films, right? Because you love Spring Breakers, I hated it.
Spring Break.
I knew you'd want to do that again. Oh my God.
God.
Yeah, and then they went on to do The Bling Ring with Sofia Coppola, so a bigger success story with another Coppola. And then we get into Under the Skin by Jonathan Glazer in 2013, which is such a good movie. And like at this point, a lot of these movies, they're like very critically embraced, but they're not doing like amazing things at the box office. They'll probably do like okay, like they can keep going. But it was kind of, the real breakout was in 2017 when they made Lady Bird, which they made that for 10 million and it grossed 75 million at the box office.
Nice.
So at that point, it was their biggest financial success. And then we kind of, at this point, we're kind of really getting into the like, they're in their swing. Because then if we fast forward to 2022, Everything Everywhere All at Once wins Best Picture at the Oscar. It also does incredibly well at the box office. It was made for 25 million, grossed 143 million, and that one they produced fully themselves. So we're already up and running.
But then, unfortunately, followed it by Beau is Afraid, which was an absolute bomb, which unfortunately for them. But
Yes, because that's the thing, actually. Like, throughout, there have been flops along the way. It's not like it's been, like, faultless. But I think because they always kept the budget pretty low,
yeah,
they've never had to...
they've not had a catastrophic wipeout.
Yeah, exactly. Never a catastrophic out flop. And at least, even if the film doesn't do so well, like Beau is Afraid, at least they're still staying true to what they do. Like with Beau is Afraid, some people loved it. I remember you thought it was interesting, right?
I thought it was interesting, but it was a bit like, I've not seen many of his films. That's the first thing. And I think it's like, if you are a fan of his film, this is probably like, it's a bit like the Tenet for Christopher Nolan. You've got to be into his stuff, I think, to really kind of get much out of both. I did find it interesting. I found it a bit overlong, but it was, here's the thing, it was a flop, but it was interesting. It was an interesting film. So I think it's going to have much more life over the next few decades than a lot of much bigger, like, let's say, I don't know, who's going to watch Aquaman 2 in like 10 years' time? So that was a ginormous flop, but what I'm trying to say is I just don't think it's got much of an afterlife, whereas Beau is Afraid, it's a quality film, it's an interesting shot that didn't work out, so it's at least got to have a bit more of a life to it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's by a director who has done great things, continues to do great things, Ari Aster. So it's sort of like it's part of a filmography that's interesting. So you're right, it will be remembered. I love that you pulled out Aquaman 2, because I was thinking the trouble with trying to compare these sorts of films to like a total flop that you're never going to forget is like you've already forgotten all of it. So I can't even think of it.
I was struggling, I have to say, Lily, about that
Very
one
well done. But the thing that I thought was really interesting with A24 is that like it feels like it's happened almost spontaneously, organically, but actually there was real kind of thought behind their marketing strategy as a production company, because they've done a lot of sort of cheaper guerrilla marketing campaigns for their films. The example I really loved was when Ex Machina premiered at South by Southwest back in 2015. A24 partnered with the dating app Tinder to market the film. And basically, when Tinder users were swiping through, they would come across this attractive woman called Ava, and she would message them and eventually invite them to like look at her Instagram account. And when you click the link, it took you to this Instagram page where the only thing on it was the trailer for Ex Machina.
God damn it.
If you've seen...
God damn it. Dating online's hard enough without being goddamn fucking trolled by A24. I'd be well good.
That's so true, so true.
Catfished.
Because, Ava was played by Alicia Vikander, so obviously we all want to date with her. But if you've seen Ex Machina, it's about this sort of artificial intelligence robot who's in the physique of a beautiful, attractive woman. Like, it perfectly works with what that film is kind of exploring. So it's a really...
it's genius marketing, genius tie-in.
Yeah, and there are a lot of these examples throughout their kind of portfolio. So I think that in itself was like a really great way of getting those films to cut through. And then kind of alongside it, they have this like great online presence. Like they have a podcast that's very popular. Maybe for our listeners, something to move to when we've wrapped up. I'm just saying there'll be a void after we finish, right? But keep subscribed. You never know when we'll pop up again. And also their social media account has 3.9 million followers. So they really have become synonymous with quality film, like more so than any other production company.
And if you can, because I mean, essentially they're kind of making memeable or viral kind of marketing, isn't it? Is that they're doing things that get picked up on social media or by other media outlets to report on them, which means that they don't have to spend millions and millions putting posters on the side of buses as much as the bigger studios. So, if you can crack that more guerrilla, like, that's your lower budget marketing taken care of.
Yes, exactly. That is the genius of it, because also it appeals to those sort of under 40 film going audiences. So it sort of is great in connecting with the kind of audience who would be interested in their films. And also it's way cheaper, like you said. So pretty smart.
But one thing, the only it's not. Is it a concern? It's something that I've noticed that a lot of because see a lot of younger students at the film school. A lot of them, it's almost A24 is almost like a genre of film. They're like, I like A24 films, which is like a shorthand for saying I like these quirky independent films. Which I don't know, that bothers me a bit because the thing is, these kind of films do exist out there either right now with different companies or just looking back through the history of film, we've got these kind of films. They're not all A24 films.
So what is your concern with that? Explain it a little bit more.
I think my concern is a bit it's a bit fuzzy concern, but it's something along the lines of, please don't rely just on A24 for these kind of films. These kind of films are all out there, but perhaps they're just not as well packaged. The thing about A24 is they're very good branding. It's what it's all about. You go A24, you know the kind of film you get and you're taking less of a risk. If whereas you go and see something that looks interesting, but you've not heard of the production company, oof. Yeah, I just worry that it's almost cornered the market in that kind of thing, and it's not their fault, and I don't blame them. But I don't know what I want. I just want younger filmmakers to know that if you like A24 films, go looking for films like that, by other distributors, other companies.
Yeah, I mean, I guess all we can hope is that other distributors will sort of follow their lead and take, take a similar approach, I suppose. Because I think it is a good thing overall. It's definitely opened up the film industry to like more of these 90s style independent films that for a long there was a really sort of dull period there like 10 years ago where we really weren't getting anything that interesting. It was so rare. And they were and often they were like tiny budgets and barely in cinemas, whereas these films now, like A24 is established enough that they do have long runs in the cinema. I mean, The Drama is a great example of one that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, I mean, the thing as well with A24 is that I think most companies, pretty much every production company started off small and just expanded over time. And so what happened in that expansion, the problem with Disney, for example, is that they need to make a lot of money. So for them, there's not much business sense in them paying 10 million to make 20 million. They want to pay 200 million to maybe make $1 billion. Okay, but of course, what the downside of that is, of course, if you flop so hard. So A24 have done the classic thing. They started off very small. They've built it organically. They've had excellent taste and judgment on the films they've made. But they are now getting into the expansion phase. They are now there's talk of, they're making their first IP-based film based on Elden Ring by Alex Garland.
Yes.
It's just like, okay, I want them. Basically, the worry is they just become like all the other big studios. If this works out for them, it's going to be hard to say, oh, shall we make another 10 million small film or shall we make another, bigger budget Elden Ring? I don't know. They appear to have judged things very well so far, so I'm hoping that stays with them. They're also not a publicly traded company. I just checked, so you can't buy shares in them. As soon as if they go public, as soon as they sell shares, it will destroy them. So I hope they stay private because obviously once you've got shares and shareholders, they don't give a fuck. They just want profits. So.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing. They are still making those smaller budget movies or, they're still distributing. Like they make so many films each year. Like they're very, very busy. But they have also moved into these bigger budget movies. I mean, like Marty Supreme is a good example of that. That was made for 70 million. So a much bigger budget than their usual movies. It did incredibly well. It made 191 million at the box office. So it's made back its money. But yeah, you're right. That is like the question of like what is next for A24, because they have sort of, I think they've stretched out and expanded in this realm of smaller budget movies as much as they can. And the question is like, what do you do next? And like you said, they're going to do this. They're going to work with Alex Garland, who did Civil War with them a few years ago. And they've partnered with for a few years. But yeah, it is a live action adaptation of a video game. So yeah, we'll see about that. And also I saw that the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is in development. So clearly their next
another remake. Haven't they done those already?
Exactly. Yeah, that's established IP. So clearly that is what they're now moving into, the thing that you and I both have some issues with. My hope would be that if they're going to do that, they will focus on working with directors like the Alex Garlands, the ones that they have worked with before, that they know have a point of view, and they'll continue to give them creative control and trust, because
Yeah.
the thing that is very interesting about A24 is like, yes, like your students, I also am like, if it's an A24, that's a genre that I like. But what's cool about it is that the consistent thing with A24 films is they're all completely different. There is no consistency of theme or genre or like director type, so I really just hope that they kind of stay true to their roots and don't lose that as they expand.
I mean, as well, I do think this is, as far as like doing a bigger video game adaptation, it's still very A24-ish. Like Elden Ring isn't like one of your big AAA blockbuster titles. It's not a warfare simulator and like that. So it's a slightly quirkier take. It's also, they've got Alex Garland in, so they've got an interesting filmmaker. So I do think that they're staying true to their kind of general vision or vibe for the kind of films they make. So I'm interested. Put it that way. I'm interested. I've never played Elden Ring, but I like Alex Garland mostly, so I'll be interested to see what this is.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, let's do our case study, because I mean,
very academic.
I know. Yeah, God, it sounds a bit dry, doesn't it? But basically, I thought we should probably talk about the drama at the end of the show in case there is anyone who hasn't yet seen it, because there will be spoilers. And I really love that the trailer did not spoil
in fact, it was an excellent trailer, because the trailer really got you intrigued as to what's the central conceit of the film, or what's the secret.
All right, so before we got married, we did this thing where we said the worst thing we've ever done.
Okay. I'll tell mine if we all do it. Promise?
What did you do?
This dog.
Beer bottles and porn.
You left him there overnight.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing I've ever done?
Okay, Are you serious?
Totally. I was so intrigued.
Perfect marketing,
Perfect marketing, yeah, yet again. So a tick on that aspect of the case study. But the drama was directed by Christopher Borgli. You might recognize him from his previous film, was his first kind of English language film, because he's a Norwegian director. It was Dream Scenario, which, if you've seen that, kind of follows some of this, some similar themes, really. But we can talk about that in a bit. To give a plot summary, it stars Zendaya as Emma and Robert Pattinson as Charlie. They're a couple who are about to get married in a couple of days, and over a sort of wine tasting with their best man and maid of honor, another couple, Rachel, played by Alana Haim, and Mike, played by Mahmoudou Athi, they decided to discuss the worst thing that they've ever done.
Yes.
Perfect decision to make this big reveal just before you're about to get married. So they go around the table and finish with Emma. Robert Pattinson doesn't really have one. It's a bit wishy-washy. Oh, I bullied a kid online, but you could sort of tell that he didn't really. Like, I didn't buy it. But then Zendaya's character, Emma, she reveals what, James?
Well, she reveals that when she was like a child or a teenager, she planned and was going to carry out a school shooting, and she didn't carry it out primarily because another shooting happened in a shopping mall, so it stopped her from doing it. So she got very close. It wasn't just a passing thought. Yeah.
Yes. So essentially a thought crime, we could say. So then what sort of ensues is this sort of Robert Pattinson kind of spirals into a sort of breakdown about this. He's clearly wrestling with what she did, how bad it was and what it means about whether he knows the person he's about to marry. Also alongside that, Alana Haim's character, like, I thought fantastically played. She's kind of the very uptight, judgmental voice of one aspect of the audience, I'm sure, who's completely unforgiving and now doesn't want to be involved in the wedding because she herself, her cousin, was the victim of a school shooting and is in a wheelchair as a result. So, she has some skin in the game, but, very much the film seems to be coming down the side that, like, she's a bit of a shrew for being so judgmental, right? Whereas Mike is a bit more like, oh, is it that bad? I'm not sure. So this is what the film is really exploring, right?
Yeah, and it's good because it's like essentially the reaction of the characters are what you imagine you would probably react to. It's like you try and justify it. Is it really that bad? Then there'll be someone who's like, no, that's really bad because I've got some personal experience of that kind of situation. So it's an excellent setup for a drama. The film then explores how do those characters navigate all that, because of course we've got this ticking clock underneath it all, which is they're getting married the following weekend. Is that right? Yeah. So
yeah, in like 4 days or something.
so there's it's like there's pressure building as it gets closer and closer.
You're right. You're totally right. And also, it's just a great setup, great premise for a movie, because as the viewer, you then come away and you're like, what do I think about it? Perfect conversation for a date, I would say.
Oh,
I mean, depending on what the worst thing you've ever done
What's
is.
the worst thing you've ever done on a first date?
Yeah,
or you meant just like...
Yeah, that aspect, okay, could be potentially dicey. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, I'm like, there's nothing that really springs to mind as like objectively
That's my
the worst.
answer too. Absolutely, yes. We'll go with that. But funny was what I did love about watching this film afterwards was it was a Friday night and the cinema was packed. That was lovely.
I've seen it twice, packed both times. And in fairness, the first one was a screening, so of course it would be. But I went again last week, so this is many almost 2 months after it was released, and it was packed again.
Great.
And people were like howling. The reaction, everyone was so alive, like loving it.
So that was nice to be in a cinema watching a film with a bit of crowd. And then as soon as it ended, everybody, I could just hear the murmur. People going, "Oh, what would you have done?" Or "What's the way?" So it got people chatting after the film, which is also nice,
Yeah, that's really what you want, right, from a film, is to get you talking. So I have to ask you, because I've had like various different opinions on this. What do you think? Do you think what she did was bad?
Yeah, I didn't think. I thought it was going to be something. In my mind, I was expecting other things. I thought it would be more kind of sex related. So in my mind, I was like, I don't know. I guess maybe that's where my mind goes. But I thought, it was a bit of a thought crime. But then as the film goes on, you realize how close she was. It was pretty bad. But like, she was so much younger, and she's anyway. So I didn't think it was that big a deal. Basically, yeah.
The thing is, I think it is a bit of a Rorschach test, because for me, as we learn more about the circumstances around her planned shooting, to me that sort of exonerated her, honestly, because the implication I got was that because she was more enchanted by the aesthetics around the whole thing rather than literal wanting to kill people, the fact that she could so easily be like spooked by the whole thing and kind of wake up to the reality when she was faced with the actual implications of this kind of behavior, like that to me suggested that when she says planned, I didn't think she planned it that much. Like the plan was just she got her dad's rifle and videotaped herself with it and like practice shooting, but she didn't take the gun into school. She didn't have the days planned in her head about how she was going to do it, what she was going to do. At least none of that was on the film. And maybe that's me, I don't know, speculating. But to me, it didn't seem that big a deal at all, actually. But then I know that like I've spoken to friends who very much felt like no, this is definitely not okay. And she only didn't do it because of this like quite random thing, so therefore she was pretty close. So I thought it was very well balanced, because it never falls too far on either side for you to say completely that she's completely guilt-free and shouldn't be judged at all, or completely she's terrible and a monster. It was so in the middle, and that makes it such a fun thing to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I also loved as well that it was a drama film shot on film as well, which I noticed. I was watching it thinking, this looks like it's shot on film. And again, lovely. No particular need to shoot on film, but they just did. And it just added to that, kind of like made it look a bit more elegant, a bit more classy.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the aesthetic was totally 90s rom-com. The fact that they're sort of this upwardly mobile, young, beautiful couple living in this like beautiful flat in Boston. Like all the interiors of all the settings were gorgeous. So it kind of lulls you into this full sense, especially at the start of the movie when you get this cute meet cute and everything's going well in terms of they're planning their wedding. They're clearly in love with each other. It's all great. And then this huge kind of clangor comes down in the middle of everything and causes all this chaos. I thought that I really loved that that lulling you into a full sense of security for then it to become very, very tense and that keep being amped up was really well done.
Yeah.
And I also felt like that kind of rom-com sensibility was really smartly used because it's not that at all. It's actually a very unromantic and I would say quite cynical view of the sort of industrial wedding complex because there's this sort of like B plot running alongside it where they keep encountering people that they've employed to help them with the wedding who hate them. Like if you look at it from the employee's point of view, you know, you think about the dance instructor who tries to help them make a dance and then they kind of are a bit dismissive of it and like fuck around with it. And then you think about when they're having the wine at the food tasting and they're like taking the piss, wanting it more bottles. People are really resentful of them. They're very entitled because, oh, we're getting married, therefore we can have whatever we want. And I quite enjoyed that as a sort of subplot, if you will, because like, there have been like in the 21st century, really, there have been movies about weddings that are quite critical of how big it's become. But they usually are ones that are very critical of the bride and her being like a bridezilla. Like you think about Bride Wars, films like that. Whereas with this, it's equal across the board. Robert Pattinson is just as invested in this wedding, just as entitled about the whole thing. So I quite enjoyed that sort of critique that was happening as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I thought it was a nice dark-hearted, you know, cynical rom-com. You like you say, lured you in.
Totally, because like even with the fact that you like in most of these movies, there would be a lot of focus on the wedding itself. That would be what we're building towards. And whereas with this, we build towards it, but then they skip over the wedding itself and get straight to the reception where shit really goes down. Yeah. And I love that, like that kind of inversion, like subverting of your expectations.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed it. What did you think of it, like kind of overall?
Oh, I loved it. It was a great time at the cinema. I went on a date night. It was just great to go to a cinema to feel it having a bit of life to it. Everyone was locked into the film. Yeah, I had a great time. Came out of it thinking, more movies like that. And the thing that kind of always was a bit different as well was the trailers beforehand were for two films I'd never heard of before, both of which looked like they had intriguing premises. Neither of them were like big blockbusters. I'd not heard of them. Small, interesting cast. I was like, oh, great. Are we getting more of these kind of films? Because that would be good.
What was it? Do you remember what the films were?
Sorry, I can't. I'm really sorry. But I've not even heard of them since. You know, they're not popped up. But they looked interesting. They looked low budget. It was like a premise. You know, a bit like the drama. It's about there's like a key MacGuffin thing. You know, so I'm hoping that we may have more of these kind of things coming along.
Yeah, I mean, I'll very much be interested to see what Christopher Borgley does next because with Dream Scenario, it's very much a film, I think, critiquing cancel culture. And there is a way in which that sort of jives with the drama because the same, I think, questions are being asked about how we judge people as much as it is about like how well do we really know our partner and those sorts of questions. There is some kind of broader conversation, I think, happening with action versus thought, you know, because in the Dream Scenario, the protagonist is sort of cancelled for something he hasn't even done. He's just for appearing in people's dreams, essentially. Both films also have this incredible like tension and like awkwardness throughout. I found it almost unbearable in Dream Scenario. I have to say it was really excruciating, whereas I felt like with the drama, they managed it in a way that I found a bit more manageable.
Yeah, I was wondering how excruciating it would be, but yeah, they balance a fine line there.
Yeah, they did. And I have to say, can I also just say that I thought both Zendaya and Robert Pattinson were so good. Robert Pattinson in particular, I felt like that awkward British man is so familiar to me. I thought
Oh,
it
like
wonderful.
to me he was like a bit of a riff and a remix of like the bumbling Englishman popularized by Hugh Grant, back in the 90s. It was
Yes.
definitely, shared the DNA of that kind of classic bumbling Brit, posh
Totally.
Brit.
Whereas in those movies, the film encourages us to fall in love with him and find his foibles absolutely
Yeah.
charming. Whereas in this, by the end, you're like, you're a fucking idiot. What the hell? You know what I mean? It's just like, what is even happening? Are you okay? What's up? But yeah, I mean, I really, really enjoyed it overall. Like, I do wonder what Christopher Borgley is like trying to say. And I'm not sure if I'm like totally aligned with his viewpoint all the time. Like, I felt like the film was on the whole like very much veering towards like being on Emma's side, and there wasn't really as much given to like Alana Haim's character. Like, you hate her by the end, right? You think she's so judgmental, and really it's like, well, I can also understand where she's coming from. Like, her cousin went through this experience, this trauma, and so it's very interesting. But yeah, I'm very excited to see what he does next. And like, clearly it will be something interesting, because the movie was made for 28 million. It's made 121 million as of yesterday. So incredible, great things, and I'm thrilled to
28
see
million.
what's to
It
come.
looked good on 28 million. Like, this is, like. Sorry, 20 million. Okay, you can make a good-looking movie on 28 million. I don't want to see more like cheap digital-looking films if you've got a 28 million budget, I think. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It looked great, right? And we had like two of the biggest stars leading a really great cast. So
It felt, the thing is, Lily, I think as well, with a lot of these type of films, I think there's this feeling of, I'll catch it on streaming. This was made for cinema. This was worth seeing on a big screen. Yes, there's no like spectacular set pieces or epic landscapes, but it was a film. It was made for cinema. You could tell it was uncynically made by people who cared about crafting something that people go into the cinema to see. That's what I really loved about that film.
I agree. And also the mic drop, the needle drop of the song that Zendaya plays whenever Charlie, Robert Hudson's being too serious. What a banger. We were playing it all night when we came home that night. It was so good.
Right.
All right. Well, that's it, you guys, for another episode of Groovy Movies. We'll be back next month for our Christopher Nolan bonanza.
Yes, and thank you for listening as always. And if you can find your way to leaving us a review or liking our podcast, it all helps get out to a wider audience.
So we'll see you next month. Bye.
Bye.
Groovy Movies is produced and edited by us, Lily Austin and James Brailsford. And James also produced the theme music.
Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Groovy Movies Pod, or email us groovymoviespod@gmail.com.
For more information about the films discussed, check out the show notes.